Hi, this is Cyrus Wong. I would like to share about a topic about introduction to Flask application. And basically, your prerequisite is some basic knowledge on Python 3.6 or higher. And the outline of this section will be have some background, getting started, basic application structure, the folder structure, and what kind of the so-called template engine, and then the ginger access with a very brief introduction and some forms, logic, cookies, sections, and then debug mode. And okay, so-called web application, some recap for you guys is that it's just everyone so-called web app is so web application preparation, and so-called is a software running inside browser and then also include some server-side technology. But in the previous talk I talked about is major on the JavaScript, HTML, and CSS is something from Java browser side or client side technology. But today we will go focus on the server side. And the recap HTTP protocol is quite straightforward. You got a URL, and then the client, so in the browser mainly, you send a request to the server, and then the server will return some file, actually some download some data, download some file, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, image, whatever from the server, and then the web browser will render, just draw it something like drawing a photo, and just follow the standard of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to render the display. Okay, what is Flask? It is a micro framework for Python, and it is highly extendable. And people may talking about the Django or other Python framework, but for the for the for the direction of framework, we so-called is a lightweight framework to extend it as extendable, add more framework from the different direction. You need to install different library or add on to extend the basic capability. This is the direction of Flask. But if you talk about the Django, this is a very large framework, and then it will try to include all the basic for you. But you may not be using it, or sometime in the current situation, especially for web for the cloud situation, you want to have the minimal web application as small as possible so that you can limit the function, limit the resources. You will just restrict it as simple as possible. It's based on the Worksurk and Jinja 2 framework. It's a template engine, and then the web server API giving the accesses. You just know the name is okay, since you normally will just install something and then you find it's able to run with web server is because of that's this standard. It's highly extendable. Okay, in for the basic installation, it is just a very simple API for you, but you can add different module or different library package to extend the feature of Flask, and it's trying to make it very lightweight and very core. The core is very small and very simple. You just need to don't you will not have something you don't use inside yet, but is defaultly installed in your application. It is fully open source and very simple. You just a few lines of code. You can create a very simple web API or web application. Why fast? It is easy to start. As this is a very straightforward run, since you don't need to really understand everything. You just try to have a very basic one, and then you focus on something. For example, I want to have a REST API. I just install the module about REST API. I need to do some authentication mechanism. I just install that one to understand or learn or know, get the knowledge of this plugin, and so that it is quite straightforward for you to start. And learn super side processing is better, since you are better to learn something module by module. So the simple one is good for you to start. And for the basic, you need Python 3.6 or higher, and then and just under a directory, you just for our case, we were doing something so-called a project called microblock, and then we just create a folder, and then go into the folder, and then may basically suppose we don't use Docker here. We just use virtual environment. So we create a virtual environment, and then if for the case, we will activate the virtual environment, and then we install the Flask and the related extension into the system. And Okay, but now it's quite straightforward for you. If you are my student, you just go to my Cookbase, just click on create a server. Everything will be installed properly for you and set it up for already. And also for the case if you are under the Docker situation, you may not use virtual environment. You just directly install the library into the Docker. It's okay. So if suppose using virtual environment, the most basic code folder structure is that there's a virtual environment and then the app.py here is your program. And then we need to have some environment variable settings. For example, if you don't tell is suppose by default it will look for this file apps.py, but you may change the name or different naming convention. You need to define, let the Flask application know about uh, which file you want to start. So you will set up the Flask app environment variable in general. But if you don't set it, just follow the convention user default name will still possible since they have some default value. Um, but for the cases that when you start it, you will have a terminal session. And then environment variable, you know that if you do this kind of setup, every time you reset you start your computer or close your terminal, it's the console, the data will be lost since this setup is by command line. So we in general we will set up a file, so-called the environment file, flask.env file. You put your environment variable inside this file, and then every time you start your Flask application, we will just use the library to load the environment file, or by default it will look for this file to load the environment variable for your case. And here is the very basic and start for your first web server and web application. You see, it's quite simple. You just need to have import the Flask, and then you create an application, and then you define your first URL, so-called the slash, that is the index page, and then it's just hello world, and then run the server. This is your first server-side web application. It's quite simple and straightforward. Okay, and for line-by-line explanation, just import this one, and then you just this is something called OOP. You create a object. This object so-called app is the class is Flask, and then you provide the name of the application. But name is normally for Python. You see this is a file name app.py right here. But this doesn't matter. You may train it or just give it a name, and then you decorate. This is so-called decorator. This syntax you may not maybe the first time to reach it in see it in your Python code, but this is don't have to think too much. It is just a so-called decorator and the attribute extra information to provide additional feature or functionality for the below method or attribute. In programming languages, you always see this kind of annotation decorator pattern. This is by meaning there's an application have a wow. The stroke is the root path of the website, and you just return the entire well for the application. When you run the application, you just type the flask.run fast run, and then it will show this development server for you. You don't have to install anything. Just by default using Python, it is already able to become a web server for you, and it will start the web server. If you want to start it, remember to click on Control C, then you will stop the web server. And the initialization is those two lines source code. But behind the scenes, if you are running your Flask application inside the web server, it will call the web server, call this, we will communicate between the web server and the Python application. So that the web server may be Apache, maybe the NGX, and then is special application to provide to run to host a website. You easily will just use the WSGI protocol to communicate between the Python and the web server. Since the web server normally is not from Python, also not your library, you need to have some way to communicate with them. um we have so we did for the case that we have the wheel function and route, and later we will talk more about the MVC design pattern. But here you just note that for the client is a web browser, you just send a request to the web server. The web server send to the server. This means the Python, okay, from the JavaScript, HTML or HTML browser, your Chrome browser send a request to download a test file. The test file is HTML, but the HTML is not something statically a file in your file in your folder, it will be a call to a Python function just mentioned before, and then return the content of the or from the Python function. The Flask application will receive the web request and then return the status codes and the data for the URL required. And the real function is here. Suppose you have this is a route function, so-called the route. You have the route stroke is mean the root, but later you will see different folder, different structure. You can have different path or different pattern of the URL, and then it will route to a function, something like a router. You will route to see different URL, see the URL, see the link, and the route to different method, different function in your Flask application. And for real function, it's so-called real function. It seems it will try to render the real of the something, but don't care about this. Since this is logically, we don't just care about the route, we don't care about the name here, but you just divide whatever you like, and then here with the locate. If we will later with more discuss the route, we can have variable, we can extract the keyword parameter from the route. To start up your Flask application, you can just start like here, but for the development, so when you writing your program and develop your program, you want to with more information. You will enable the debug mode. If you want to enable debug mode, you set debug true. You will got much more information for use to under the web development. But remember that this is if you're a hacker is looking for this kind of information. It will tell you the library, tell you the error detail. It is not decidable. You will be hacked by hacker. So you need to prevent yourself to enable debug true for the production web application. Later we will talk about how to set this variable better, so you environment variable or platform variable to handle it. The template system is something quite straightforward. Is that you have some data, okay? You got the data. Name is John, age is 30, and then here is your wrap. You see this is the HTML code. You just replace the name here, replace the age here. The template engine is just doing like that, help you to merge the data. Okay, help you to combine the data and this so-called is template, but the template's most simple template is just do the straightforward replacement of the variable. But the template have more logic. You can do for loop, you can do if then else, and different kind of tag, specialized tag for you to enhance your view development. You just normally we want to have the real logic. Here's the real logic: how to make the display, how to query the database is in Python, and then we will let Jinja template engine to handle the HTML. Also, suppose if you understand that you see the website, and not more all of the website you will see the common header, common footer, and then the middle part will be changed for all the pages, in case your boss may told you that our company have some special promotion, or we want to have the all of our website, every page need to add a logo, so-called we have promotion there. If you use the traditional thinking of HTML to develop a web application, you will find that you need to modify 1,000 web page for your website, maybe, since you got 1,000 web pages. It is not making sense. We will try to minimize the duplication of source code in your web view development. Okay, this is so-called view development. HTML is the view. You have the Outlook view development. You just want to remove repeated code. We make use of the object-oriented concept, OOP concept, inheritance, to prevent, to remove the duplicate code. Okay, the idea is that we want to lazy. We want to keep the website look very consistency. We will not with some web pages different from other, so we remove duplicate code. This is quite straightforward for template inheritance. We can have a template so-called layout, and then we will able to load the layout is put the header and footer there, and then other page embed inside the layout. But from the programming point of view, you see here is no difference. Okay, no difference. You just call it directly struct, and then that second page is more stroke. Stroke go to the index.html. Index.html, you see index.html, and then more is a more in there. You have two different view so-called wheel file. We have different wheel or template for different routes. And but in your program, layout.html is very important. Is you have the common section, for example, the header, the footer, the full body, before the body, after body, you have some content. But every pages, you just have a block is different. The block is the body. You can have multi-block. For example, title can changes, body can changes. You just have this kind of layout and then put the common header, common footer, or something. Will change every pages as a placeholder. But we don't call it placeholder. We call it block. The block will be replaced from in the index in the and the more pages. You see here's the source code of index. You see the index is not a full HTML. It is not a full one. It just fill in the block from the layout. Okay, from layout you double check layout or the title have a body, and then you derive the content. The content is an index HTML. You see the title and the body. Then every page we just replace title and body, then we can manage our HTML more easily, and then you will not have a lot of problem. For example, just add a logo or change something, you don't need to change 1000 of HTML. Here is the more, the second page. You see this the very minor changes here and here, and common code, all the common code have been removed. And we are just show the example of Jinja 2, and we will discuss more, and also you can learn Jinja 2 quite easily from internet, and it's just a template engine. Here is the example. Without template engine, you can also using very simple so-called Python string interpolation. Okay, interpolation, just such a method to replace the variable. This is the variable, and then here you see the name. The name is a path variable. We can extract the path variable here, and then if you have a stroke and the Peter will become the name, and then Peter will be replaced here. This is quite straightforward. But if you don't use template engine, we have a lot of difficulty if you render very complex HTML output. For example, you want to capitalize or something, you find a lot of problem. And now suppose we can replace this one to extract it from a string inside our Python code to a template. This is the idea of Jinja 2. And Jinja 2 is allow you to have a very natural one or simplified one for you to render your HTML with your data. And the extension is fine to be HTML or CHTML or whatever. You can just something, they may have some other extension, but it does not matter. And extension does not matter. Since you need to set the extension here, okay, you see, you put HTML, you can put whatever name. So some developer will change the name. And for the variable parsing is quite simple. You just have an argument here. You can put the argument, for example, headline equal to headline. Then the headline will be placed here. This is the data. This is the key, and then the key will be headline here. You watch it, you see it is quite straightforward. And this is important. You need to always pass your data to the from the wheel function, or normally so-called controller wheel function. Will send it to the wheel, and here you just replace. For the URL, you need to learn about that yesterday, because we don't want to hard code any URL in the HTML, okay, in your template. We will prefer URL for more. It will check that the Flask application, your logic application is a route there. We check from the route and then we paste here, and this is better for you have this kind of not hard coding codes. And you can have a lot of statement. For example, if this is New Year, Happy New Year, true or false here, you can have a list of name, and then the name will be loop the name value one by one. You can have a lot of programming construct inside the Jinja 2 format. Just follow the document. It is quite easy. But be honest, it will not be very hard. Since the most complicated logic, for example, query the database, tracking user information, whatever you have been completed in your your view function in your Python from the view rendering is it's just straightforward. Some data, you just display the data. Maybe have some minor, very simple logic here. If you found the template engine very complicated, what you need to do is that you just move the logic from the template back to your Python function. Is the idea and the thinking model. You need to follow this kind of pattern, complicate query logic, move back to the Python. And we have block. We just mentioned body block, title block, and then you can have any number of blocks for you to as the content for your body data. And we will store the template under the templates folder. This is by default. So we normally we so-called conventional override configuration. By conventional, our naming is templates. So you just create a folder and put the file there if you're able to read it. And if you are training your name, you need to just find some place to replace the environment variable or set it up. But in general, for development, we will try to follow the convention so that every developer using Flask will know the flow structure, they understand it, they can follow it. And okay, and for forms is part of the very important part for your application, as most of the application in the real world is collecting data. You need to let the user input some data, and then you need to send the data from the browser, from the HTML back to the Flask. To the Flask is the Python, and then send back to database. This is the core part of web development. Always doing this is repeat it in different format. To send the data from your browser to the server, you need to have mainly one method is so-called form submit. Okay, so you need to create a form. A form is just HTML, but for HTML normally you must have action, method, and then the name field, and then from the server you need to extract the data. And in general, action is a URL. If you don't mention it here, it's just the current page. Okay, if your current page so-called select user, then you just click the submit button. It will send to the select user the same URL. No difference, same URL. But for the method, you need to think about it. Most likely, don't you set the post. This is always safe. Okay, since you get request may not be decidable in most of the use case. But for example, if you are doing search engine, you guys seen the search engine, you want to have the URL so that people can bookmark it. Or the product page, you got product 1, product 2, product 3, you got the ID. You need to let user to index you get. Otherwise you post. And name is the very important person. You need to extract the data from your Python. Remember, the name don't make something Python not readable. Okay, some character Python may not be readable. You will not set it, but JavaScript allow it, HTML allow it, but Python don't allow it. You will have problem. And here is the logic. You see, here's a name, and then in Python, you just very easy. You just request from .get name. You will get the name from there, and then you just render hello HTML, and then with the name you can display the username. Quite straightforward. But here we set it up for post. We can have different URL. Okay, in Python, remember sim URL not mean single function. You can have one function handle post, one function handle get, one function handle put, one function handle delete. Is the modern web development is like the REST API. Later we will talk about REST API. This is the idea. We have single URL of multiple functions by changing the method. And well, hello. Now you see the source code. You extract the information from pros, and then you request method get pro. You just retrieve the document, and then you can quite simple to Google, to call ChatGPT. You got the source code you need. And now I would like to discuss about cookie. Cookies is something store a piece of small information in your browser. It had been many years ago from the beginning of web development. So many years already have this idea to keep small piece of data inside your client's browser. But the behavior currently some called we will block cookie. You see a lot of this block cookie. You will know about why it will be blocked after this video slide. And for the case, you can set cookie just save something in your browser. You can set it from JavaScript, set it from the server, from Python, I mean from Python, from JavaScript also, and they can transfer the data between the Python and JavaScript as well, since it's a common store. There's common storage inside the small piece of browser inside browser. You have the key. Important key is important. You need the key variable, something like a dictionary. You can have explanation or maximum age is something very similar. Set the date or set the number of how long it will last, and then you can have a path, you can have a domain, but don't have security. Don't be remember the path or domain something like a folder. Okay, just say a folder. It is not really security related permission. Nothing there. It's just a folder. And then domain, we can have some subdomain set up, but we will not discuss many too much here. And then is it security cookie or not? If secure cookie, only HTTPC up HTTPS under encryption condition. This is Python code. Okay, under the HTTPS condition, you will able to read from JavaScript, or you can set disallow JavaScript to read the cookie if it is not under security. Just HTTP only, set it to true. Then JavaScript, if it is not under so it's not about encryption. JavaScript will not be able to read the cookie. Yeah, remember, you may in some case you don't want the JavaScript to read the cookie. For example, the hacker may hack the JavaScript, but if you set this up to HTTP only to true, it means that HTTP only to false. It means that browser can read, but true you will not able to read it from JavaScript. And then you can allow the sim size so that you make sure the cookie will not be caused other domain. Here's the logic and reason why too much cookie will not be good. If you want to pro something from the server, cookie is not defined yet, but you can set the cookie from the server and then send back to, for example, user ID to Peter. And then after a moment, user may close the browser or something, and then after that, he send another request for the browser. The cookie will always follows your web request sent to the browser, send from browser to the server. And if you can think about if you got 1K cookie or maximum 4K cookie in general. If you got 4K cookie, every request you maybe download 1K data. 1K data with 4K cookie. It is not making sense. So there's a reason why we try to minimize the size of cookie for the performance and also security. We don't want to put a lot of cookie. You need to minimize the use of cookie and also think about the security issue. As every request you send, for example, you download an image, the image also carry the cookie. You download JavaScript, the JavaScript carry the cookie. Since this is based on the domain, not about the file type. And you send it update, and then you always will get back send forward and forward the cookie with your all of your web requests in the same domain. For the server side is you can see, for example, here's the first way login. After login, you want to set the cookie. Set cookie, you just have the case that I got the pros, and then I render the result and then set the cookie, have the expiration time, for example 5 seconds, and then we will have simple cookie, security cookie, HTTP only cookie, and then we will get the cookie from the render or view. One is from JavaScript, one is from JavaScript, one is from the server. And you will see that there's this after setting the cookie for the case of HTTP and HTTPS, you will see the HTTPS only one is you got more cookie. But if you're not under HTTPS, you will disappear one of them. And get cookie, set cookie, and see if it is HTTP, you lost the secure one. It's not here. And for the case HTTP only cookie, you after 5 seconds, all of them deleted. Since it's expired, all of them deleted. But HTTP only cookie, you see that you true it or false it will be have difference. But I think the example is not here. Not for mine, just not the case. If you want to delete the cookie, there is no delete cookie API in your in the application. We just said it expire immediately. Next time the web server call to your server, the browser call to your server, it will clean it up. This just set the expiry time. But if you think it clearly, It means that you can't delete the cookie in your client, as you need to wait for your client next time go to your website and then set it expired. This is the trick. And you remember cookie may not be secure. Some of the website will try to disable it. Also remember it's very small, and every time you carry a cookie, you carry a lot of dummy data to the server. Will slow down your application. Oh, since cookie is not secure and you have a lot of overhead, you can't say, oh, I keep 5 MB data in cookie. It's impossible. If you have really more data, you need to keep in the server, say a few meg or 1 MB, and we will have another data section for you. Is so-called section. Section is a way is that the data actually section normally will be stored in the server, or some special case we will carry out the encrypted version to and from cookie. It depends on the web server application setup. Okay, the setup of the server. It is a dictionary similar to cookie, but the data in general, the sensitive data will not be stored in the browser without encryption. Everything encrypted or not sent back to the browser. In two cases, so depend on the setup of the server. The data always keep in the server, or the data will send back to the client under cookie but still encrypted. In PHP, you will see all the cookie in server size, and but you can config. You can view but cannot modify since the cookie already signed and encrypted. You train it, it will not be work anymore. And for Flask, you will use the server side version or client side version. It depends on your setup. For example, here's an example in PHP. Normally, go to the PHP shopping cart. The first time you use the section data, the section got the ID here. You see the ID here. And then the ID will put into a special cookie key is PHP section ID back to the client. And then the second request, it will always carry the section ID to the server. The server will get the data from the memory with the same ID, and then it can keep some data in the server, not in client. This is a server side section, classical. But in case you got the section, you got the multiple server. In the cloud environment, it's quite straightforward, quite simple to have multiple server, always multiple server. You will find the problem is that the section you log in the server run will not in settle. Since if you keep in the memory or hard disk, it will not be shareable. You need to have a something common place to keep the data. In general, we will use the Redis or Memcache. That this is something distributed caching technology. It's a cluster or some server store data, and you just connect, send all the section keep here so that the request from which web server will still be able to read from the web server. But for the development, there is another method so-called client-side section. This is the default way of fast handling. You don't need to have the common place, but we store the encrypted version of section in the client, and then send the section back, and it's stored in the cookie. Okay, in cookie, but the cookie, you mean the cookie will not be very big. You need a very small piece of data, and then using section with database in general. For fast user, we will have the database. We will use section, a small amount of data in section, and then use database that you just send back to and from with maybe user ID or something, and then from database to query back the data you required. This is another type of method to handle the problem. You just encrypt your section data and then send to and from between the client and server, so that you don't need to have it's more scalable. If you understand that you just share the common encryption key between different server, all of the server got a secret key to decrypt the data, but you don't need to have a common place to keep the data. This is a very different one. For section flaws, you can handle user data, where it's just keep a small piece of data, and then when you create a file section, you can configure the method for them to keep the data. You just we ship out the question, your memory, your web disk, your memcache, or just I mentioned your encryption key. For section, you just start the section here. You need to load the library, import the section and then config your app config what kind of section storage you want. And then when you use a section, for example, you want to have a shopping cart, keep a note, so it's just section. Here is the put the data. It's just a dictionary, and then or list or whatever. Your dictionary here. Okay, your dictionary could an empty list, and then the empty list you can store the data, append into the list. Okay, you remember here's the empty list, here's the empty list, and then append it. You can store nearly all kind of data type in section. Suppose, but don't put something very complicated as you have the process behind the scene, the so-called serialization. It is need to be the data is able to convert the format and store into memory. Not everything able to convert and store in memory. For example, if here is represent a database it will not be put into the memory. Okay, it's a hardware in an abstract concept. And you note that there's a list there, and then just get it out and then call it, and then you whatever you do, just a storage pattern. And then apply for variable so-called append the list, and then finally you render it. Yeah, you just here you can put the list of here from section look here you got the list and then loop it in the view. Okay, to remove cookie you prop it up. Okay, you prop it up or key it. Okay, normally we so-called pop and keyer. Prop just one section variable. Keyer so will remove all the section. Remember remove it when people call log out. Okay, before the user log in, don't use any cookie. Don't use any section. As people not logging in into your system, it's supposed you don't need section. Don't use any section before log in. Otherwise, hacker will DDoS your server. If your server use section before they log in, they just keep request to your server, you will use up all memory. And this is the classical way with so-called section hijaction. The attacker just capture the ID here and then got the ID will got your section. And so you will need to try to prevent this kind of session cookie being used by HTTP only. It must be HTTP only and HTTPS. Okay, two cases. HTTP only, it means the JavaScript not able to read the session ID. Since most of the hacking technique is on top of JavaScript, okay, JavaScript, and if JavaScript not able to read this cookie, then it will be safe. Really, you need to set up debug mode. I just mentioned before, it is very dangerous if you enable the debug mode in the production server. So what you need to do is simple. The easiest way but not secure way is that you just set the true variable here or set true variable here. Both case is not good. So normally we just use environment variable to handle it. As you can set up the debug mode through here every time we load and more. You change the source code, set up debug mode is common. Then you change the source code, the web server will restart. Then you can test your program immediately. But for production, you enable debug mode, you will expose a lot of information to the public. This is not desirable. And so prevent the problem. Normally the web server we will use what environment variable to 0 is not debug, 1 is debug mode. But by default, if you put in the production server, just override this variable before running the server, then it will not enable debug mode by default. Okay, thank you.